Well, grace and peace, and the Lord bless you. Come in, hop on, and tag and invite and share. Uh, Tag at least 3 people and go ahead and hit the share button. Make sure you share it onto your page and invite somebody to join in. It's been a couple of weeks since I've seen you all, or you all have seen me, and it's good to be seen. We're going to get into the word tonight, but go ahead and invite and tag and share and allow somebody else to partake of the word on tonight. Wherever you're watching from, the power of the word has no distance. Is not limited by distance. As you receive the word begins to bring transformation into your mind and into your life. So go ahead and hit the share button. Go ahead and tag 3 people in the comments and join us as we get into the word on tonight. Grab your Bible and something to write with and to write on. And I'm not going to keep you long tonight. We began a series of teaching a little bit ago that I'm going to be continuing in a series entitled Christ's Perspectives. Christ's Perspectives, Lessons in Looking Like Christ. And a series coming out of our Jesus Life series, really designed to challenge you about the way that you look, not the way that you look, but the way that you look, the way that you see, the mechanisms, the perspectives, the systems of definitions that are at work, the assumptions, even that are at work in your mind. I want you to pause right now and lay hands on yourself and say, Lord, open the eyes of my understanding. Lord, open the eyes of my understanding. I really want to challenge you to allow yourself to step out of yourself for a moment and to really see yourself, so that you can begin to become aware of some of the assumptions that are at work, assumptions that may be counterintuitive to the life of faith, that may be counterproductive to the quality of life that you desire to live. And as those things come up tonight in the teaching, or even in this brief moment in prayer where you're asking the Lord to open the eyes of your understanding, I want you to make note of them and to challenge yourself about them. Go ahead and hit the share button. Go ahead and hit the share button. That's what I'm doing. Just give me a second. I'm sharing it onto my page. And let's get into the word. Matthew chapter number 5. Matthew chapter number 5. So we began this series a little while ago entitled Christ Perspectives. And I gave you, we started talking and teaching about managing the unexpected. And I gave you 4 things that were necessary to effectively manage the unexpected, so that the unexpected doesn't get or have more power in your life and over your life than it should. Number 1 was managing your expectations. Number 2 was managing interpretations. Managing your expectations requires that you be aware of what is sourcing your expectations, the things that you expect out of life, out of people. Are those expectations realistic? Are those expectations entitled? For instance, do you expect the people you love to live forever? That's an unrealistic expectation. And wherever there are unrealistic expectations, there's a platform, a launching pad for a life of disappointment, where where a disappointment should be a temporary space that you pass through, where pain in response to loss should be a temporary space that you pass through. It'll become an abiding space that you live in. And so, managing expectations, managing interpretations. How do you interpret what you're seeing? What are the definitions that you assign and ascribe to what you're going through, what's happening in your life, why it's happening, what the cause is? And then number three, which we're going to deal in and talk about tonight, is managing your responses. Managing your responses. Before we read Matthew 5, go to Proverbs chapter number 3, and let me give us Proverbs chapter number 3 as a starting place for managing your responses. Proverbs chapter number 3 and verse number 6. And I want you to remember this: the quality of your life is not determined by what happens in your life, as much as it is determined by how you see and respond to your life. The quality of your life is not determined by what happens in your life, as much as it is determined by how you see your life and by how you respond to your life. Got it? The quality of your life has very little to do with how much money you have. And I'm talking about not the quality of the sense of luxury. I'm talking about the internal quality of life. Has very little to do with what you have materially, has very little to do with who you have or what goes on in your life, as much as it has to do with how you see your life, which is why it's important that you are constantly focusing and refocusing your outlook on life. Proverbs chapter number 3 and verse number 6 says, "In all of your ways, acknowledge him." The way you see things, the way you interpret things. Tonight, we're talking about the way you respond to things has to acknowledge him. I want you to pause and I want you to consider the place you're in life right now, the things you're going through in life right now, the things you're experiencing in life right now. And if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, turn the bell notification on. And if you're just coming on to Facebook, go ahead and hit the share button. I want you to pause, become aware right now in this moment, bring to the forefront of your mind what the most pressing things that are happening in your life right now. Whether it's in your marriage, whether it's in your business and job and your finances and your body and your health, whatever the most pressing thing is that's going on in your life right now, I want you to bring it to the forefront of your mind. And then I want you to assess, I want you to become mindful right now of the definitions and the interpretation that you have about that thing. What does it mean for you? What does it mean for the quality of your life? What does it mean about the future? What does it mean about your future? Does it mean, your future is going to be dark and dreary and heavy, loathsome? Does it mean you're not going to be completely and entirely fulfilled? Does it mean that you're out of time? Does it mean that life's not fair, and because life's not fair, you're going to be frustrated, walking around with a chip on your shoulder? What does it mean for you? I want you to bring that to the forefront of your mind so that you can become aware of the set and system of assumptions and presuppositions that are at work in your mind, oftentimes unaware that they are at work in your mind, because your ideas about what the future looks like directly shapes the way you're going to feel about the present. Your ideas, again, about what your future looks like will shape your feelings and experience in the present. What do I mean? What do I mean by that? If I called you today and said, listen, on Friday, I'm going to write you a check for $50,000. Well, from this moment forward, you're going to be real light. You're going to be real happy. You're going to feel real encouraged, really energized, because your idea about what the future holds is influencing the way you are showing up right now. Are you catching this? And it's influencing the way you feel right now. If you get a report that something terrible is going to happen on Friday, all week long you're going to have that feeling in the pit of your stomach. All week long, chest is going to be tight. All week long, your sleep is going to be challenged, and all of the influences and affluences of stress is going to be manifesting in and on you because your ideas about the future inform and influence and shape and in many ways drive the way that you feel, Pastor Dolores, grace and peace, and the way you show up today. Go to Matthew chapter number 5. All right, we're talking tonight in this teaching series about managing your responses. I told you a few weeks ago, and I'm going to keep saying this to you until you really get this and you really accept this. You do not control your life. The only thing that you can control is your response. Write that down. It's a note to yourself. I do not control my life. The sooner you release this false idea, this false notion that you control your life, number one, the more present you're going to become, and the easier it's going to become for you to experience and to manage and to live through the unexpected. When you acknowledge and accept, because see, acknowledging something and accepting something are two completely different things. When you really accept, listen, I don't control my life. I don't control it. Why don't I control it? Because there's too many other people in it. There are too many other faculties in it. I'm living in a sphere called the earth that I don't control what's going to happen. Hurricane could come and hit your stuff, your house jacked up, car messed up, whatever it is. You do not control your life. The minute you accept that, you can start putting your energy, Pastor Tony, grace and peace, you can start putting your energy on what you do control, your responses. The reason so many of our responses are out of control is because we don't have the energy to manage our responses because we spent the energy on something that we cannot even affect, and that is controlling our life. So when it comes time to you now managing your responses and in context, managing a faith response, you don't have the energy to do it because you burnt your energy trying to control stuff that you could never really control. Matthew chapter number 5. So tonight we're teaching about managing responses, and we want to see what the Christ perspective needs to look like in your responses. Matthew chapter number 5, and look at verse number 20. For I say unto you that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall in no case enter to the kingdom of heaven. Now, what did the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees look like? What their righteousness looked like is that they would preach and teach and talk one thing and live another. They would challenge and teach the people. That's what it said in verse number 19. Whosoever shall teach, shall break one of these least commandments, shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. God does not put a high premium on you knowing just how to talk the word, as much as God's desire for you is to live this word out. We place, many of us, great stock in being able to memorize scripture in mind, when your focus needs to be learning to retain Christ in nature, so that this that I preach and talk and teach, it shows up not just in my mouth, so that without ever having to say it, my life articulates it. I was experiencing, Pastor Dolores, a significant challenge and significant opposition that presented significant oppression and an opportunity for me to show up in a way that contrast and or contradicted the confession of my faith. I made a conscious decision in that moment. I made a conscious decision in that space that nope, I'm going to show up as Christ. Something had been done against me that I had the right to react in a certain way. I made a commitment within myself. Nope, I'm going to show up as Christ. Why? My righteousness has to exceed that of the scribe and Pharisees. They talk it, but when it comes time to live it, they've got amnesia. All right? Look at what he says in verse 21. You have heard it said of old time, thou shalt not kill, and whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of judgment. Here Jesus comes, because everything about the message of Christ was calling us up to another standard of righteousness in our living. Jesus was not as focused on being right, and hear the whole thought out, as much as he was focused on being righteous. Because sometimes being right, an eye for an eye, is right. It's right. You punch me, I'm punching you back. It's right. You do something to upset me, or you get upset, I'm going to get upset too. You going off, you getting loud, I'm going to get loud too. Even your brain processes in that way. It's called mirror neurons, where your brain, when it sees somebody coming at you a certain way, the brain automatically signals you to respond in like manner. So they going off on you, they out of pocket, you going off on them. They're dry and unkind and unloving to you, and so you show up in that same way, dry and unkind and unloving, right? But Jesus calls the disciples up to another standard, to another standard of righteousness. He's constantly challenging them not to take their cues about how they should be or who they should be from where they were or from what was going on around them. He's constantly challenging them that, listen, the people around you in particular, he's talking to them about the religious leaders. These scribes, they're talking one thing, they're living another. What they're doing and how they're doing it is not the way that I want you to do it. So I don't want you to borrow from them. He calls them up to another standard of righteousness. And look at what he says. He says, you're so focused just on not killing somebody literally. But he says in verse 22, I say unto you, talking about managing responses, Mark Quint's grace and peace. He says, I say unto you that whoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. Jesus said, y'all focused on the only thing that's going to put you in danger of the judgment is if you kill somebody. Thou shalt not kill. Jesus said, I'm calling you up to another standard of righteousness. You walking around here and you got a problem with somebody for no reason. You got disdain in your heart for somebody for no reason. He said, you are in danger of the judgment. If I had $1 for every person, Pastor Dolores, who didn't like me and had never met me, I could pay Everybody, all 61 of your mortgages payment for the next month. There are people who have issues with you that have no cause. And some of you have stuff in your, it's just something about them. And you're walking around not just with apprehension, but with a strong disdain, anger, and offense in your heart. Jesus says, you're in danger of the judgment. And look at what he says. Look at what he says. And whoever shall say to his brother, Raka, shall be in danger of the council. But whoever shall say, thou fool, shall be in danger of hell's fire. Jesus here is teaching them about managing their responses to the people that are around them. So look at what he says then in verse number 23. Therefore, now watch how this thing flips. If when you bring your gift to the altar, and there you remember that your brother has aught against you. Now notice, watch this. Jesus begins by saying, you folks that's got stuff in your heart against people without cause, you're in danger of the judgment. You're in danger of hell's fire. Then he continues in his conversation and says in verse 23, if you remember, not that you have an ought. Do you see this? If you remember that somebody has an ought against you, I ain't got no problem. They got the problem. I ain't got no issue. They got the issue. They're going to come and talk to me. No. Jesus said, come out of that childish thinking. If you remember that somebody has a problem with you, he said, leave your gift. He's talking about your offering. Jesus says, don't take that offering back with you. Leave your offering. And go and make that right. Now, why would Jesus tell the one who doesn't have the offense, who doesn't have the anger without cause, who doesn't have the bitterness, you're responsible? That's what he says. Because his primary focus is the salvation of souls. And he's just told them, the one who has this in their heart, they're in danger of hell's fire. The only thing you're in danger of, you're the one without the offense. The only thing you're in danger of is your ego being challenged by having to approach the one who you know has a problem with you without a cause. So lay your ego down so that their soul isn't lost, and go and make it right. But see, that takes a measure of humility. Because what you mean? I got to go. No, they got the problem. I ain't did nothing to them. I know I ain't done nothing to them. You know, that's how you're talking to yourself. Come on, I've been doing right, and my heart is pure, and they the one that done it. Jesus says, you whose heart is clear. Because see, the person who has this in their heart, they are unable to see clearly, to reason clearly, especially not to reason spiritually. Their thinking and their perspective is contorted by this offense they've set up in their heart without cause. Because that's the most confusing kind of stuff. You know, you ever had somebody that they really, you should really have an offense with them, but they got one with you. I was today driving, going to check the mail, and I'm on the feeder road, and this person comes through the stop sign and stops right on the lane. Now I'm on the feeder road on the highway. They come through their stop sign, stop, and just stop there. They sitting there on the phone in the middle of the lane. So I blow the horn, and they stick me the butterfinger. I said, now wait a minute. You run through the stop sign, you sitting in the middle of the road on your phone, impeding traffic. I'm really doing you a favor, not T-boning you. And you gonna stick the middle finger up at me like you have a problem? Jesus says when you encounter people like that, it is your responsibility to respond in a way that disengages them. We're talking high standard of righteousness now. Are you catching this? But in order to do that, I gotta have a perspective and an outlook that operates independent of the influences, independent of all of the metadata, all of the little messages that I'm unconsciously receiving. I got to be aware of my mirror neuron system, my brain's, the natural body's intent and attempt to get me to respond in the same way that I'm receiving. I got to be aware of that so that when I get that little impulse, okay, they're gonna do that to you. You show them you know how to do it. They gonna flick you off. No, you show them you know how to cuss them out. They gonna disrespect you. No, show them you know how to put on. You want to get down with the get down. I'll show you how to disrespect. You got to be aware of that and say, nope, I got a responsibility to come up to a higher standard of righteousness and live this thing out. But that requires me managing, again, my interpretations. Go over, let's see what your interpretation of life has got to look like if you're going to be able to manage it. Go to 2 Corinthians chapter number 4. Hit that share button. Hit the invite button. Hit that share button. Hit the invite button. Let me tell you what my primary goal is. My primary goal is to be so accepting and loving and genuinely kind towards those who wrong me that my kindness becomes a point of confusion to them. They're saying, why in the world they being so? Now, why would I do that? Because that's what Romans told me to do. Said in doing so, you heap coals of fire. And you don't do it out of the spirit of, I'm going to show them. And no. You're genuinely free of the negative impact and effect of the negativity you're experiencing. 2 Corinthians chapter 4. Hey, Brother Todd. All right, look at how you got to start seeing things if you're going to manage the response. We've looked at this. We're going to keep on looking at 2 Corinthians 4. I want you to memorize this. Verse number 8. We are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. If you're going to manage your response, there are two things you've got to do. Number one, you've got to come to terms with what your reality is. And then number two, you've got to make a deliberate, conscious effort and commitment to see your reality through the lens of faith. Look at here's reality. I'm troubled on every side, lens of faith, but I'm not distressed. Yes, I'm troubled on every side, but I'm not distressed. Well, how can you be troubled on every side and not distressed? Because remember, my idea about the future informs and influences the way I show up in the present. I call you, say, I got $50,000 for you on Friday. Tomorrow, your job is going to be confused about who you are. You're going to be the nicest person. You bringing everybody donuts. Come on, holding the door for everybody. Buying everybody lunch. What's wrong with you? Who are you? Your insight into the future has affected the way you're showing up in the present. Are you catching this? So even when in the present I'm troubled on every side, because my insight into the future, that all things, Romans 8, are working together for my good. That insight into my future, though that may not be the immediate reality, it is the ultimate outcome. All things are working together for my good. And so, because I have that insight into my future, it influences the way I show up today. So, even though today I'm troubled on every side, my response and my interpretation is I'm not distressed. And you got to watch people who want you to be distressed, so that when you talk like that, and I'm not just saying say that and it's not the truth, I'm saying you got to come to a place where that's your reality. And when you get into that place and people say, no, come on, keep it real. Come on, no, you can let it out with me. You got to be mindful of people who don't see a faith response as a possible reality for you. That folk expecting you to lose it, expecting you to set it off, expecting you to respond in kind. You say, no, I'm troubled, yes, but I'm not distressed. Right? We're talking about managing responses. Perplexed. I'm confused about why and where that's coming from and why now. But you know what? Even though I'm perplexed, I'm not in despair. I can be confused and not in despair. How? Because my idea about the future influences the way I show up today. Are you seeing this? We're talking about managing responses now. Go to John chapter number 9. Hit the share button. Elder Doley, grace and peace. Hit the share button. Tag 3 people in the comments. Those of you that are fasting with us prayerfully, you're still being strong in your fast. Of course, we did 7 days, fruits and vegetables. And then these last 7 days we are doing, which ends on Wednesday, 1 fruit and vegetable meal a day and liquids for the rest of the day. That was too easy for me. And so I'm doing liquids only. Really maintaining authority over the flesh and over the body and over the appetites. And then, of course, I gave some faith challenges and targets for you to hit the perfectly you're hitting. Tonight, we are teaching on Christ's perspectives, lessons in looking like Christ. I'm not talking about what he wore. I'm talking about the way that he saw. And tonight, we're talking about managing responses. John chapter number 9. In order for my responses to be managed, my interpretations of the moment have to be managed. You got to start slowing yourself down and saying, all right, hold it. The interpretation, the way I'm defining where I am and what I'm experiencing, is it faith informed or is it fact governed? See, the starting point, here's my starting point for every space, every place in my life. People ask me how I'm doing. Here's my starting point. All is well, and whatever isn't will be. And that's not just religious speak. That's a place of awareness that I reside in. I am convinced that whatever isn't well right now ultimately will be. And because of that, it not being well right now affects me differently than it will affect somebody else who is not convinced and aware that, hey, eventually, ultimately, all will be well. All right? You have to decide, remember this, if your experience will be the lens you look through or if it's going to be the object you look at. Right? Is your experience the lens you look through? Let me tell you the problem with allowing experience to be the lens you look through, because some of your experiences is jacked up. And so you looking, some of your experiences have been dirty, messed up, foul. And so now you looking through dirty lenses, trying to get a clear perspective, a faith perspective when you're looking through a dirty lens. You got a dirty outlook. My experience is not the lens that I look through, it's the object I look at. I look at my experience through the lens of Christ. For many of us, and most of us, unaware, experience is the lens we look through, and Christ is the object we look at. So we look at Christ through the lens of our experiences. And we see him and what we expect of him and what we expect from him through what we have experienced, rather than allowing experience to be the object and Christ to be the lens. So in John chapter number 9, Jesus is doing ministry, passes by this man that's blind on the roadside. The disciples said, hey, what happened here that this man is blind? Jesus says, y'all focusing on the wrong stuff. What does it matter who did sin, the man or his mama, a man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus said none of that is the focus. He said, here's the focus. If God is going to get the glory, I got to work the works of him that has sent me in this. And that's how you've got to see these unexplained deficiencies in your life. Stuff going on that you have no justification for. You don't know why it's happening there, why it's happening then, why it's happening to you. You got to come out of trying to get down to discovering the why, and you've got to allow yourself to say, all right, since this is here right now, I'm going to use this to bring God the glory. That's the first conversation I have with myself when something upsetting, frustrating, hurting, disappointing happens in my life. All right, how can I use this to glorify God? I don't go to why, God, why me? And why right now? Because see, when you start getting off into that, your responses are going to be left unattended. You're going to be responding out of your emotions, your uninformed emotions, unenlightened emotions. By the time you become aware, you're going to be trying to fix your responses rather than being fixed in front of your responses. Jesus says, listen, I ain't focused on that. Here's my focus. I got to work. This is an opportunity to work and to bring God glory. Whatever you're facing right now that is less than desirable, hear me, it is an opportunity for you to work and to bring God glory. Because the glory and the strength and the power of God is seen the greatest when it's surrounded by and shrouded in contradictions. God gets the glory when you suffer wrong righteously. It can be seen. Now that person is really committed to God, because they don't have to take that. And they certainly don't have to respond in that way. And they still being kind and still being merciful and still being loving and long-suffering and humble and meek. That person, I want to know their God. See, the strength and power of God is hidden when the only time you can stay low is when you're wrong. Of course, you should be humble when you're wrong. Are you catching this tonight? So right now, I want you to assess, bring to the forefront of your mind, what are the challenges that you're facing in your life right now? And you got to start on a daily basis. The self-talk of how can I use this to work so that the glory of God can be made manifest. Can't control what other folks are going to do, but I can control how I'm going to show up in it. But that requires you managing interpretation. Look at us, Psalms 23. We're talking about managing responses. And you'll never manage your responses if you're not managing your interpretations. When you start getting off into how unfair it is and how much, no, they the one got the offense, they're going to come to me. When you start getting off into that, the enemy has already begun to trick your spirit and to trick your mind, to distract you down to a space and a place where you start responding in a way that is justified because of the mirror you're facing. What they're doing gives you the permission to act in a certain way. No, you got to come up out of that. You got to sit above that. You got to get that out of your mind. Life isn't fair. Accept it. The sooner you accept that life isn't fair, you will stop being so bent out of shape when you experience the unfairness of life. I expect life to be unfair. And whoever told you that you should expect life to be fair set you up to live a life of disappointment. Psalm 23. All right, here the psalmist is. Says, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Right? So before he gets to acknowledging the reality of where he is, he begins by talking about the goodness of God. He's going to acknowledge his reality in a moment. But it's so dangerous to see your reality and not see it through the lens of the goodness of God. Right? So before you start getting down into what's really going on and what's happening, who's doing what to you, you got to invoke. That's what exhortation is. You got to exhort yourself to seeing through the lens of the goodness of God. The Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures, and he leadeth me beside the still water. He restoreth my soul. Now, in all of these declarations is an acknowledgement of reality, because for my soul to need to be restored, I got to acknowledge that it's depleted. He's saying the same things, but the way he's saying it is being filtered through a faith perspective. He's not saying, oh, my soul just so empty, and I'm just running on fumes. He acknowledges it through the lens of faith. He restores my soul. He restores. Oh, my heart is just broken. No. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up all of them. Oh, I'm just so sick in my body, and oh my, I just hurt. No. By his stripes, I am healed. I'm just so afflicted on every side. No, many are the afflictions of the righteous. Look at what he says. He restores my soul. He leadeth me in the path of righteousness. Here's the humility. For his name's sake. See, this thing is on his name. That's why he's so committed to it. Now here he is. He's getting ready to finally acknowledge the reality of where he is. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'll fear no evil. Yea, even though I'm walking through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no. I'm going to talk about where I'm at, but I'm going to talk about it through a faith lens. And I won't fear evil when my starting point is all is well, and whatever isn't will be. Are you catching this? Go to Job chapter number 13. We're talking about managing your responses. I'm just about done. Hit the share button. If you did it already, do it again. Just share it. Share it all up and down your wall. Share it. Job chapter number 13. So every time you share it, it allows new folk who's logging on. Because like you, how you off and on Facebook all day long, your friends are too. Job 13. And look at verse number 15. Though he slay me. Now, even though Job's overall outlook is incomplete, because God wasn't slaying him, though somebody may be able to argue that because God volunteered Job, that he was. So, but notice what he says. He doesn't say, why? Why are you taking me through this? And sometimes that's not what's coming out of your mouth, but it's what's coming out of your body. Why and why? He says, listen, all right, I accept. Though you slay me, I acknowledge this thing is killing me. That's what Job is saying. This thing is knocking the life out of me. And the longer you live, you will experience some things that knock the life out of you, that hit you in the center of your being. And you got to manage your response to it and say, all right, though he slay me, I don't know why. I don't know where this is coming from. And look at Job's stuff. I want you to put your life, what's going on in your life right now, put it up next to what was going on in Job's life. How just out of nowhere, all his kids are dead. Out of nowhere, his business is over. His cattle are dead. Stuff is on fire. Out of nowhere, he was healthy. Now all of a sudden, he's sick. He got all of this going on back to back to back. And then I want you to see that even with that, his response is, though he slay me, mandianda aba osutaya, yet will I. And sometimes that's got to be your spirit telling your soul you will trust him. Sometimes your spirit man, glory to God, has got to instruct you. Listen, I know you want to quit. Your spirit's got to be telling this to your soul. I know it's hard. You're despairing for life, but you will trust him. See this? Yet will I trust him. And not only that, but I will maintain my ways before him. I'm not going to give myself the permission to act unseemly because I'm being slayed right now. I'm not going to give myself the right to get out of pocket because I'm being slayed right now. Now I'm going to maintain a faith perspective that though he slay me, I trust you. The song, It Is Well With My Soul, It Is Well With My Soul, It Is Well, was written by a Christian attorney whose only son at age number 4 in 1871 dies. The next year in 1872, the Great Fire in Chicago wipes out his vast estate, burns it down. The next year in 1873, he sends his wife and daughters over to Europe on a summer vacation. And while he sends them ahead, because he's got work to do, the ship that he sends them on sinks. His wife lives, 4 daughters die. On his way back home, his law firm catches on fire. Insurance company refused to pay for it. Son dies. House burns down. 4 daughters drown on a ship. His now law firm, his business is lost. And he sits down thinking about what's going on. And his response is, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well. It is. He didn't get consumed in, for your son died. Yes, hurt him. Yes, sad. But he didn't get consumed in. Didn't get consumed in, man, the house that I've spent all this time working to provide burns down. Doesn't get consumed in. 4 daughters drown with the ship sinking. Doesn't get consumed in. His business burns down. He's consumed in, it is well with my soul. Remember this, when your soul is whole, you see and say things differently. Go to Genesis chapter number 50. Just about done here. Genesis chapter number 50. And look here at verse number 19. Joseph said unto them, fear not, for am I in the place of God? But as for you, so here these folks are who, at the beginning of it, Joseph could have said, y'all ruined my life. But remember this, when you're healed, you tell the story differently. That's not what he sees anymore. Y'all broke me. Y'all threw me in the pit. Y'all. Mm-mm. So because he doesn't see them that way, when he's got the opportunity to get them back, he's got the upper hand. They sit around the table. Joseph says, don't be afraid. I'm still not going to put myself in God's position. I got the power, but it wouldn't be righteous. You meant it for evil. Remember, your interpretation is what is going to aid you in managing your response. You meant it for evil, but God meant it for my good, to bring to pass, as it is this day, to save many people alive. Proverbs 15 tells us a soft answer, verse 1, turns away wrath. The greatest area of control that you have to control the variables of your life is in your response. If you calm down, I'm going to calm down. No. Soft answer turns away wrath. Yeah, but I'm right, and I got the power. Yes. Soft answer turns away wrath. I'm telling you that whatever space you're in right now, it is an opportunity, and not just an opportunity. It is a responsibility that's being granted to you to bring God glory. God needs an agent in whatever space in life you're in right now. He needs somebody that will represent him on the deathbed. He needs somebody that will represent him when you don't have two dimes to rub together. He needs somebody that will represent him when you got more money than you know what to do with. He needs somebody that will represent him with a broken heart. He needs somebody that will represent him with a whole heart. He needs somebody that will represent him married, and somebody that will represent him single, and somebody that will represent him divorced. He needs somebody in whatever space you're in that's going to show up committed to the Christ standard of righteousness. That's why you're there. That's how you need to use that. That's the commitment I've made to myself. Whatever space my life finds itself in, I'm going to be his representative. I am going to show up as Christ. Father, I pray that grace, that commitment, that conviction, Father, will be released into and onto the heart and lives of those that are watching us tonight. In the name of Jesus, it is so. It is so. Listen, if you've been blessed tonight, I want to encourage you to respond in your giving. The information is there on the screen. You can give by way of Cashapp. You can give by way of text to give. And then there's a link over in the caption if you need to use a card on a secured server to give online. But respond in your giving tonight. Partner with us in work of the Lord. Listen, live as unto honor. Live as unto the Lord. Life is going to be filled with swift transitions. Y'all should have listened to the song. They told you. It'll be filled with it. Expect it. But live with the awareness that his grace is sufficient. I'm praying for you. We love you to life. Whatever you're facing, face it with a Christ perspective.